As the global order continues to shift, two familiar powers, the United Kingdom and Russia, are finding themselves at uncomfortable turning points. In segment 1, Britain's Labour government under Keir Starmer faces rising public dissatisfaction, economic drift, and increasing skepticism about its reform agenda. As the Financial Times argues, this failure may not be a glitch, it may be a historical necessity to break the illusion that simple party rotation can fix a structurally failing state. Then in segment 2, Russia's place in Central Asia is undergoing a quiet but fundamental erosion. At the recent Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit in China, Vladimir Putin's presence underscored not Moscow's dominance, but rather its gradual eclipse by Beijing. While the optics were of unity, the undercurrent was very clear. China is now the power broker in the region, once considered Russia's backyard. Two old powers, two different downfalls, but one global story of decline, dependency, and uncomfortable realignment. I'm Hala Al-Hamalawi. This is In Focus. The Financial Times makes a provocative argument. The failure of Keir Starmer's Labour government may not only be predictable, it may be necessary. In a country where public expectations have long occupied what either major party is willing to confront, Starmer's early performance in office, tax hikes, regulatory tightening, and little meaningful reform has revealed the limitations of a technocratic, softly centrist approach. Britain's problems run deeper than party politics. As the piece argues, the country is being crushed by its own institutional architecture. Triple-locked pensions, unreformed welfare, and an NHS that absorbs ever larger budgets without resolution. Now, Starmer may be the end of an era figure, clearing illusions about easy fixes and paving the way for painful but overdue structural reform. To explore this further, we're joined by Mr. Babak Imamian, economic and political analyst. Welcome to Qnews. Mr. Babak, the FT suggests that Starmer's failure is historically necessary, I quote and unquote. Is this simply a harsh take, or is there truth in the idea that failure is needed to force reform?
Well, thank you for your question. First, let's look at mass politics, because mass politics is different to elite politics. If you go one stage further back, humans have always had some sort of democracy. Even autocratic systems have some sort of democracy within their own group. So this idea that democracy is a new thing is not. It's been around with us for a very long time. But mass politics is a new experiment. It arrived around 200 years ago, and gradually, over 200 years, it has lowered the average of representation. So 200 years ago, when mass politics came, the masses had to choose from the elites. Over the time, they've been choosing more and more of their own kind of masses, of average. So now 200 years later, most of the representatives are average people. They're not elites. And perhaps this experiment, the liberal democracy on mass politics, is a failure. And, 200 years experiment in the recorded history of mankind over 5,000 years, it's a very little time. So maybe perhaps we are at that stage, but there is a lot more. So I'll follow that up later on.
Okay. So in your opinion, how much of Labour's current underperformance is ideological versus structural limitations of Britain's state and economy?
Fine. Okay. So let's again look at the politics. Politics was a serious business, but now it has become a sort of a entertainment contest. That's what we see. Politics is an entertainment context. And
In
through
what
media
way,
or
Mr. Babak? In what way?
okay, thank you very much. In a way that we are not electing, or I should go back one stage further.
Okay.
Before
For us to
election.
understand, I just need to follow with you.
No, fine.
Yes.
Please interrupt me anytime and ask me any question.
Thank you.
Before, because I'm part of the political system and I worked from the bottom to the top. So before election, there is a selection process.
Okay.
That starts from local association, and it's usually between 8 or 10 people in the association who would decide who should represent the constituency.
Okay.
Usually,
this is the voting system we're talking here?
Sorry?
The voting system? Is it the voting?
The vote, yeah, yes. So
voting system.
At the beginning, there is no election. It's election by the local association.
Okay.
Who should be representing the party, whether it's Conservative Party, Liberal Democrat Party, or Labour Party. So the first part of it is not much of an election, but a selection. And I believe the failure is there. They are the people, the associations committees are selecting people who would look good, they are entertaining, and they look good on television, or they are funny.
Okay, so I understand now. I use the term entertaining politics. Now I get it. Okay, yeah. Please go ahead.
So then both parties do the same thing, because if one represents a serious person, which could be boring, and the other one puts a entertaining guy, and usually masses like entertainment, so they win. So then the other party is forced also to put an entertaining person. So the whole systems become corrupt.
Yes.
So from the set, and I think this is where we are facing. And then there is that issue of diversity, where they're not looking for the best person. There is no meritocracy in the selection process, but lots of diversity. Let's have a diverse person who represents different communities. And that person who might in many ways represent different communities, being a woman, being non-white, for example, being of a different sexual orientation, and so on and so. So that might work in this way. And also being from an ethnic background, that might work in some ways. So they choose that person because not only they say we have the mainstream.
Not because of competence, but rather to achieve diversity. Okay.
God bless you. And suddenly you see people representing the community who have little, but they are good on representation level, rather than actually have the ability to manage the country, manage the policy. That's why a lot of politicians now, they consider the real job, the hard part of the job, winning the election, not actually governance. That's now you see most of them are failing at governance continuously. For the last 15 years, all members of British government, either party, have failed at governance, but they've been successful in winning elections.
Okay, I get your point. But back again to British politics, do you think that Starmer misled voters with pro-growth messaging that he never really intended to follow through on?
Well, let's look at the history of Sir Keir Starmer. He was a public prosecutor, so he had no experience in government, and mostly he had no experience in business, economy, and international trade. Now, whoever becomes a leader of any country, their first job is to bring in money into the country. That's their first job. It's been like this for 5,000 years. Previously, they used to have wars. They would go and have a war with another country to steal their wealth or bring them into their country. Now we have trade treaties, we have negotiations, we have inward investment. We become more civilized, but the same strategy. But you look at it now, all European leaders are incapable of having inward investment into the countries. And majority of the investments are within the country, within the European countries themselves, and that very little also, nothing outside of Europe. President Trump, on the other hand, is the old-fashioned leader, I would call him. So far, he has secured something like between 15 to 17 trillion of inward investment into USA. And none of the Europeans are admiring that. They're against it. So that's when you call about the failure of leadership. I think Keir Starmer does not have that ability. And may I just add this? The Rishi Sunak, he didn't have that ability either, because there is that system, railway system called HS2, High Speed 2 train. And it only required 50 billion pound of inward investment, 50 billion, not huge amount. He could not secure that. So they had to cancel that. So when you find President Trump, $17 trillion, and then just 50, which is a very small amount. And this is why a British Prime Minister cannot secure inward investment. Then that's where you see the failure of the system.
Yes. Now, if Starmer is the end of an era figure, what comes next? Is Britain ready for a Margaret Thatcher-style disruptor? You know, remember the Iron Woman, or something even more radical?
Well, the more history goes by, we think Margaret Thatcher was so exceptional. It was a fluke. Because you would have thought all leaders would be like Margaret Thatcher. Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, even though they were from opposite party, they carried her policy through, mostly. But it is very interesting. The new Conservative Party, the class of 2010, 15 years ago, they rejected all her policies. For example, home ownership. They went against home ownership. The home ownership, the number of houses which were bought and sold in 2007 was 1.8 million. So 1.8 million houses were bought and sold in England, in United Kingdom, in Britain. Now that figure, since then, it has averaged only about 1 million per year. So it's something like 45% below 2008, even though the population has gone up. So even we look at just the first policy, the housing policy, it is there. It is in the books. We don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Exactly.
But they just don't want to commit to it. Yes. And that's the puzzle.
Yes. So do you see potential in parties like the Reform UK or Splinter movements to take advantage of the growing disillusionment? Do you think that Britain or the British people believe in a different type of politics coming next?
That's a great question. So you would say, where do we start the reform? My suggestion would be the reform would start actually outside the politics. It starts with the media. In Britain, 70% of journalists are from left of politics, and media is mostly controlled by the left of politics. So they promote left of politics policies, whether on economy or on fringe policies, whether from transgender, woke, or other policies. That's what they do. So I think unless we have to correct that imbalance in media, where we should have more people from the right in politics, in media, and this way, then they could actually start watching the politics. And then again, I go back, we should somehow make politics a serious business, less of a entertainment contest. And also the reform side of it should come from selection process. So there should be a minimum a floor for people to be representing a community.
Okay. Some people say that Labour's real weakness is the absence of a clear economic narrative. What kind of story or ideology would resonate now? What kind of economic understanding are the British people looking for right now?
Well, British people want peace and prosperity. And right now, the Labour government is not offering that because they have no plan for economy. And also they have no plan for geopolitics. Let's take Ukraine war.
Yes.
They are championing Ukraine war all the time, which is it's an unwinnable war. It has caused so much misery. And the first misery is it has increased the cost of energy. And the cost of energy is the biggest contributor to inflation. And the sooner that is resolved, the sooner, very quickly, the energy prices would drop, and then the inflation would drop, and then the interest rate would drop, and we could all start improving the economy much quicker. But there is no appetite right now for peace in Ukraine because it's a great deflection for the politicians, whether British or Europeans, and they can play grandeur with that, look good on talking about we are fighting for democracy and freedom in Ukraine. While Ukraine issue was just a border dispute, which should have been resolved, as President Trump said, immediately rather than turning it into a European war and possibly a nuclear war. So there is that mismanagement. And it again comes because our representatives are mostly young and experienced and have little background in geopolitics or international trade.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Babaki Mamyan, for that compelling analysis. Thomas, government may be more than just a disappointment. It may be a signal that Britain's post-war political formula has finally run out of road. Now, from Westminster's quiet collapse to Tianjin's orchestrated symmetry, we shift focus to the SCO, where Vladimir Putin appeared but didn't actually lead, a sign of Russia's transformation from power to junior partnership. Well, to focus more on that, Foreign Policy reports that at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Tianjin, President Putin played the part of loyal junior partner to China's President Xi Jinping. Once the uncontested security grantor of Central Asia, Russia now finds itself eclipsed, diplomatically at least, economically, of course, and even militarily by China, eager to export its own model of control and patronage across the region. From Kazakhstan's coolness towards Moscow to China's deepening economic and surveillance partnerships, Beijing is steadily absorbing the political capital that Russia once commanded. But while Putin talks of unprecedented ties, the reality is harder to ignore. Moscow is in retreat, and the SCO summit made that painfully very clear. Joining us now from Moscow is Mr. Sergei Markov, former advisor to President Vladimir Putin, for more insight into Russia's shifting position. Mr. Markov, thank you very much for joining us. President Putin and President Xi Jinping presented a unified front, but how real is that unity behind closed doors, in your own opinion?
I think there are a few reasons for Russia and China to develop own cooperation. First of all, it's two big nations, I would say two great nations, nation civilizations, who determine previous centuries of the world politics, and who will play a very important role in 21st century. They're responsible for the whole world. Also, their main neighbors countries, they have the biggest border in the world. And also they have very big economies who is very strongly in cooperation. It's one general reason. Another general reason is that both countries under the attack of Western countries. Russia and China, they have different style of attack from Western countries. Russia mostly attacked by Europeans and partly British and Americans who occupy the Ukraine and have sanctioned war. But China attacked more by United States of America. But nevertheless, they both attacked by Western countries. So that's why they have to stay together for this. I think it's the main reason.
So is Russia still a serious power broker in Central Asia, or has China effectively supplanted it, replaced it in a way?
Shanghai Security Organization, when it is formed, and I quite in reality took part in this when it was in formation.
You're the expert. You're the expert, sir.
Yeah, I'm not just expert. I play some role as actor when it's formed.
Yes.
And I remember very well that Central Asia was a key reason of formation of Shanghai Security Organization, because it what happened after Taliban first time took power in Afghanistan. And they've been very radical, and those radical Taliban planned to make some kind of radical intervention to the Central Asia country. That's why Russia and China decided that will help to Central Asia country to preserve their sovereignty and stability. And also the reason was to have not competition between Russia and China in Central Asia country, but cooperation between them. And it still works.
Okay. So how much has the Ukraine war contributed to Russia's, I would say, diminishing credibility as a security grantor in the region?
I think Ukraine, of course, number one security problem for Russia, and Russia interesting to stop Ukrainian war with reasonable condition. And Russia, if Western countries deny to have real compromise with Russia, if Western countries continue to believe that they can be successful in the war, Russia needs to have victories in the on the battlefield. And in the both of these things, China can help. First of all, China very much support a Russian demand that any peace deal on Ukraine should give security guarantee to Russia.
Yes.
And also China and Russia cooperation in economy, which help Russian economy also to produce possibility for Russia to continue its special military operation.
Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan are countries that now lean more towards Beijing. Is this a temporary realignment or a permanent strategic shift?
It's depend on future. First of all, both Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, very good country, I know them very well. They have good economic development. Because of this, they want to cooperate with Russia, but they're afraid to have a secondary sanction of Western countries, which is connected with anti-Russian sanction. It's first. Secondly, of course, Chinese economy more strong than Russian economy and developing more quickly. That's why Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan interesting to cooperate economically with China very intensively. But at the same time, Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan concerned about sovereignty, and they don't want too big dependence on China. That's why Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan try to balance between Russia and China. And both Russia and China support this strategic course of those countries, because both leaders see and Putin believe that Russia and China should not compete in Central Asia country, but to cooperate.
Okay. What is the role of military optics like the SCO drills and China's upcoming parade in signaling regional dominance?
this parade should say that Russia and China was main country who was winner in the World War II against Germany and Japan now. And we know that Europeans and Donald Trump pretend that that United States is main winner, but in World War II. But of course, it's just direct lie. And also, we should remember that Russia, first of all, played main role by crashing both Germany and Japan, and Russia paid tribute of 27 million lives for this. And China also paid tribute of 35 million lives. So it was a great tragedy. And both countries want to say that we are winner. And first, we don't like war anymore because our people demand no more war. And it's both a choice of Russia and China. Russia not maniacal the war. Russia has to start military operation in Ukraine because it was absolutely inevitable challenge to Russian security. But Russia hate war. Russia wants peace very much.
Okay. Some analysts argue that China's strategy is to offer security through technology. How is that perceived in places once under Moscow's sphere?
Of course, Russia and China very much cooperate in technology spheres and economic spheres, and exchange is very simple. China selling to Russia materials for drones, and Russia selling to China energy, gas, and oil. And by doing this, both countries help to each other, not just in the economy, but in political. It's helping of preserving sovereignty and defending own sovereignty. It's a strategic priority of both China and Russia. And the reason of Shanghai Cooperation Organization and BRICS Plus to exist, it's exactly to help our members to preserve their sovereignty from aggression of the Western imperialists or wolves.
Okay. Does President Vladimir Putin accept Russia's junior role in this partnership, or is there quiet resistance in the Kremlin to Beijing's rise?
There are no junior partnership. It's exactly a propaganda of Western countries that Russia can have a junior partnership. No, it's impossible. Russia, great country. China has preference in technologies now, some of the technologies, and in economic growth. But Russia more developed in rocket missile system, in atomic power stations, and in military industrial complex, and in the nuclear weaponry, and an amount of territory.
Okay. Finally, sir, how do Central Asian leaders read this new dynamic? Are they playing both sides or clearly pivoting eastwards towards China rather than Russia?
Already to explain, Central Asian countries, they want to cooperate with both countries. It's very important for them to keep balance because they like to have more cooperation with China in the economic sphere, because China more strong, and more cooperation with political sphere with Russia. And by doing this, they are balancing and keeping on sovereignty. But it's very important that both China and Russia agree with this strategic course of the Central Asian countries.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Sergei Markov, for your valuable insights. And of course, as China continues to rise and Russia, I would say, recalibrates the power dynamics of Central Asia and Eurasia, more broadly, are being rewritten in real time. And from London's economic illusions to Moscow's shrinking authority, the fault lines of the 21st century power are shifting very fast. Whether through collapse, quiet retreat, or calculated realignment, the status quo is being tested across continents. What comes next may not be evolution, it may be rather rupture. This has been In Focus. I'm Hala Al-Hamalawi. Thank you very much for being with us.